You may have seen images of federal buildings, such as the U.S. Capitol building and the White House, in the news lately. Did you wonder why those buildings look the way they do? Why they all have large marble columns? Many U.S. government buildings mimic classical Greek architecture because the founders of the United States admired both the architecture and the ancient democracy of Athens, Greece. There are three orders or styles of classical Greek columns. The oldest are the Doric columns. They are also the simplest and the sturdiest. Next come the Ionic columns with their distinctive scrolls. Last to develop was the Corinthian column with its elaborate decorations of various plant leaves and rosettes. Let's practice drawing a Greek column, then we'll use markers and water to create a marble effect. So for today's lesson, you're going to need some thick paper if you have it. If not, regular printer paper will work too, or drawing paper. A ruler, a pencil, and an eraser. You want to be able to get all your lines right, so having an eraser is important. Then you're going to need either a black crayon or a permanent marker, not a washable marker. So either a crayon or a permanent marker. Then you're going to need 2 or 3 colors of washable markers, a bowl of water, and a brush. So to begin, you need to decide which style of column you would like to draw today. There's the Doric, which are very simple at the top, the Ionic columns with this fun scroll design, or the Corinthian columns, which are much more complicated. I'm going to start today with a Doric column. So go ahead and get a ruler, a pencil, and an eraser. I'm actually going to be tracing my earlier drawing with Sharpie, just so you can see better on the camera as I go. But you're going to start from scratch with a pencil and eraser with a ruler. So holding your paper vertically, you want to make a few horizontal lines near the top edge of your paper. So I'm holding my ruler with the hand that I don't draw with, spreading my fingers out and pressing to keep it still. Then I'm going to move my ruler down and make another horizontal line parallel with the top of my paper. And then I'm going to draw 2 small vertical lines to make a rectangle. Next, I'm going to do some more horizontal lines for the next sections of my Doric column. I spread my fingers out to hold the ruler still while I draw a line. When you're using pencil, make your line a little longer than you think you'll need it, and you can always go back and erase it. And one more horizontal line. Keeping my pencil next to the ruler, and then this space is going to be a lot smaller than those. Okay, now I'm going to connect these different sections with some curved shapes for my Doric column, and 2 small vertical lines there. This is the easiest column to draw, the Doric column. If I'm doing the Ionic column, I'm going to start by making 2 curves, and to make these curves, the outside ones, to get them kind of nice and even, both the same, I actually used the bottom of this cup and with my pencil drew a circle around the bottom, and then I erased this line here and made that spiral shape. Does that make sense? So sometimes having a small circular object to use as a tracer helps you get those both even. Okay, back to our Doric column. So we've got the top of our column finished. Now come these vertical lines or flutes on the length of the column. So you're going to start by making one at each side of your column that goes all the way from the top to the bottom of your paper. And then I'll do this one that goes from the top to the bottom of my paper. Now most Greek columns, even though they look straight to your eye, they were actually a little wider at the bottom than the top. So if you would like to do that with yours, you may, but it might be easier to make them all parallel. Okay, I'm going to start next by putting a line right in the middle from the top edge to the bottom of my paper. And I find it easier to draw these lines sideways, so that's why I turned my paper. If you want to draw them vertically, you can work with your paper that way. Now, before I fill in all of these lines, these fluted parts on my column, I want to make sure I'm making the spaces larger towards the center of the column and a little bit closer together on the edges of the column. That makes it appear three-dimensional or curved. So I'm going to make one here and then a slightly smaller space for the next one and a smaller space for the one after that. You know, this pencil line didn't really do what I wanted, so I'm going to ignore it. Draw from scratch with my marker because I want these lines to get closer together toward the edge. And then once I have finished all my lines, I can erase those pencil marks. So go ahead with your pencil and finish making these lines, and then you can go back and trace them with either a Sharpie or a black crayon. Either one will work. You just want something that is not going to smudge or smear when we paint over with water in a few minutes. So pause, draw the lines of your column. I did a Doric one just to show you, but you could do the Ionic, or here's a Corinthian one I sketched. So with all my sketch lines there, I'm just going to go over the final line I want with the marker, and then I will erase any extra pencil lines after I went over it with the marker or the black crayon. And then those pencil lines won't show up in my final art, and it'll look really cool. So let me just show you what I mean here. So after I trace all the details, I can just erase carefully. The black crayon might smear a little bit, so be very gentle with your erasing and get rid of any pencil lines. Okay, so once you've traced and gotten rid of any pencil lines that you don't want, you are ready to do the fun coloring part. So I'm going to use just some black and green washable markers. The brand doesn't really matter, but they do need to be washable. If you're not sure, you can do a little test by coloring with a marker and going over it with water. And if you can get that ink to fade or spread, you know it's a washable marker. That black one really does a good job. Okay, so I know that's a washable marker. So now I'm going to use that one for my artwork. A Sharpie will not work for this part. Okay, you need a washable marker. So the substance of marble is a type of rock, and most federal buildings have white marble with little bits of veins or different colors in them. So I'm going to mimic those veins by making some lines some thinner and some thicker, on my column, and then wait till you see how it looks when I add some water. So just a few veins, almost like branches on a tree. And I'm going to take clean water and a brush. If you have a big brush, it's easier, but a small brush will work. And I'm going to gently go over my column drawing with that water and see what happens. So I'm going with the water over my marker drawings, and you see how it kind of spreads right away. It's really cool. And then I'm going to go back and go up and down this column with some clean water. And it's okay if it puddles or wrinkles your paper a little. When your paper is dry, you can sit it under a really thick book and get it to straighten back out. So if I have a lot of water, what I can do is set my paper upright, and you'll see some of the ink from the markers kind of run downhill. So you can tilt your paper different ways to get it to run the way you want and drip, and I think that creates a really cool effect that looks a lot like different kinds of marble. So I'm going to set this somewhere to dry, and when it's dry it might look kind of like this, or like this one. This brown marker didn't run as much as the black and blue that I used on this paper, but that's okay. So use whichever colors you like. There's all different colors of marble out there in the world, so you can use your imagination and make it as colorful as you like, or you can be kind of conservative, more like this one. It's up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson about Greek columns. You can always email your artwork to me, Jennifer@blowingrockmuseum.org. I love to see what you've created.